Hey guys, it's Tom Box here. Welcome to MST.TV's top tier timeline of 2018. If you guys know this channel, you know at the end of the year, we like to recap the happenings of 2018 in terms of top decks. So we'll be delivering that in a month-by-month basis in chronological order, while also giving us context of why certain decks came in or out due to ban list or new product introduction. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreons, of course, for allowing this video to happen. Without you guys, I don't think I would have made it through with this year, so huge shout outs to you guys. But I also want to thank my viewers, my subscribers, and also those who aren't subscribed. You guys might consider hitting that subscription button and notification bell for future videos of 2019, and also the upcoming gift where I'm going to give you guys something to download so that you guys can all prepare for the cards of 2019 anyway. But yes, huge shout outs to you guys for watching, and thank you for making such an awesome 2018. Now let's talk about 2018, starting with January. Now, I apologize if I miss any decks, but if I miss any decks, leave it down in the comment section below with the deck name and who topped with it and the event, so we all know. Rather than ask me, what about this deck, you guys can answer it yourself. Rolling over from 2017, we have Pendulum Magician. This is the Skulker Bad Joker and Double Iris Magician variant, which focused on card advantage and overwhelming your opponent and just steamrolling them through there, with the versatility from the extra deck, being able to Pendulum, Synchro, and Xyz. Those are where your main utilities lie, and basically killing your opponent just through sheer card advantage. Then we also have Spirals that also came over with that jump. And Spirals were still very strong, although they did get hit in November. They were still one of the strongest contender because they still had full consistency and they just had to readapt their playstyle. And with the release of Linkuriboh in TCG-NA, let's just say the deck was able to put the quick fix in the graveyard a lot faster than a lot of us would have liked anyway. But also we have ABC variants that also moved over with the year jump. And the black sheep that came over with us would be the Hand Trap Invoked. That deck was very different, as most of the other decks in this list, they were super aggressive. Like ABC, you get to banish cards and then make big link plays and then summon out your ABC Buster once again. Hand Trap Invoked was quite different because it mainly focused on making your opponent screw up, build crappy boards, counter them, and sit on a Mechabot, and then they die because Mechabot has enough control to secure the game and close it out. Other decks that you may not have known that also took a top during the beginning of the year, we had Magic Bullets, which are the Magical Musketeers. They were just surprisingly really good because they have a counter trap that they can activate from hand, and with the right success and with the right amount of control, you will always win in a board where once you have established control, it's very hard to lose control. We also had True Draco with Weather Painters, and we also had the One Punch Man deck of Grenmayu de Iza OTK, using cards like Pot of Desires and Eater of Millions to remove threats and power up the Grenmayu to over 10,000 attack to one-shot anybody. But that was the January rollover, and things would start to change in February. So the first thing to talk about in February would be the ban list, and this ban list took out Maxi as one thing. Firewall got limited. There's a ton of cards that got limited, but the token generators, Gofu, that was 2 free, Dandelion, which was loopable, and Level Eater, which was also loopable, those were all banned. Yeah, and then on top of that, Skulker Bad Joker and Double Iris Magician was banned, and Spiral Resort was put to 1, basically just neutering all of the current decks available. But let's be real, hitting Firewall down to 1, that did not solve very many problems. Now with the top decks coming down, new decks will need to rise to the top, starting with the popularity of Trickstars. Trickstars gaining popularity. They did lose Grinder Golem Firewall OTK combo, which was still a Lilybell combo, but Grinder Golem basically gave you a free version of that. But they already had a pocket play available, which was the Draw Lock Hand Loop combo, which ripped out all the cards out of your opponent's hand with Reincarnation. So yeah, I guess that was a thing too, and Trickstars were pretty good at dishing out damage and playing with scapegoats to begin with, so it was fine. So they became a very popular deck. Next up we have 60 card Lightsworn. Grasp was still a thing. You resolve that thing, you're playing with multiple Omegas, and Omegas will rip your opponent's hand apart as you come back. You go back to the main monster zone, so you have bodies to punch and you have hand control all together, which was very nice. And Omega's 28 body is very threatening and puts a lethal clock on your opponent's life points. And another deck that has different flavor from the rest, which was more of a Floodgate-esque deck, that would be kind of like Monarchs, which would be the True Draco. True Draco still had Masterpiece at the time. However, the Ignis Heat was still banned. Sorry, not Ignis Heat, but the Dynamite Knight was still banned, so you had to be very careful how you played this one out. But it was okay because Amano Iwata was also a card which blocked out hand traps, and once you summon that, your demise is 99% going to go through, and once that goes through, you're able to set up your board and use your additional tribute summon to get rid of it or put them back in your hand, and you can bypass card demise because you can choose whether or not the spirit monster goes back to your hand first. So that was the advantage of that deck, and once you have your Masterpiece, you set up a Floodgate, and now they have to beat a Masterpiece with a Floodgate on the board, which makes it very difficult for anyone to play, for that matter. But that was the beginning of February. The second half of February was the release of Expo. Now, Expo gave us some pretty amazing cards such as Overdex Quatlas, Heavy Metaphors, Electromite, which would define the Pendulum deck down to its playstyle and core. And then we have the Pendulums themselves, which are the Mythical Beast, and we have the Mech Knights, the Column Chasers. So, with all those things in mind, what were the decks that kind of surfaced? We had the Inspector Border Anti-Meta. That was an interesting one where you just kind of block people out, and it was kind of used in True Draco to some sense. Invoked Mech Knights was very neat because Mech Knights were all light-based, and because they were light-based, you were able to fusion them off into Mechaba, and which made the synergy very good. Since Mech Knights, they focused on special summoning anyway, and you can gain a lot of card advantage through Blue Sky and Purple Nightfall, and combined with Underclock Taker, you can get some OTK potential in there as well, which was very neat. Then there's also 60-card Dinosaur. I just don't know what I would say about that. I didn't play dinosaurs at the time, but I believe grass would win you the game because you can get the UCT on the board, you can get Dolka, the Giant Rex always comes back. It was very consistent. You had Snow for more control, you had Exceed, you had Link, you had everything available at the fingertips of activating one grass. And usually that grass required you to bait out an Ash Blossom first before you get the grass, but once you get that far, you would win the game. So, yeah, take it or leave it. And then there's other variants like Shaddoll Dinosaurs that was part of it, but the key deck that kind of survived and got revitalized thanks to Expo was the Pendulum Magician deck. They've got the 3/4 negation variant through the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, the Naruto, the Decode Talker, perhaps even on the board there would be the King Jackal with multiple materials, which gives them that negation. It would be very rough to play against this particular deck. I remember because I played it. So yeah, there was that. So in March, the usual suspect decks moved forward. We have Pendulums, Trickstars, Dinosaurs, and we have Zombie Lightsworn. They all moved forward, but there was another deck that came to the top. And that was Gem Knight FTK, through the use of the Gem Knight Fusion and the ability to make Master Diamond. And once you get to that Master Diamond, to copy the effect of the Gem Knight Lapis Lazuli, you burn your opponent to death on the very first turn. And I died to it quite a bit, so yeah, it's unfortunate. I didn't give it a respect, so didn't press F, so get F'd. And that deck would continue to be more popular throughout the time until the ban list comes around. Now in April, the dust is starting to settle now. The top cut decks were pretty clear. It was Trickstars and Pendulum Magicians. Those are the two top cuts. But there were other decks that were starting to make a bit of an appearance, and the first one is going to be the Zexal deck. It's kind of based off of the Pendulum deck, I suppose, but it did something completely different, I guess. But both of them revolve around not letting your opponent play. And Zexal was exceedingly well at doing so. So yeah, what does it do? Shock master your opponent for every card that they have, so they can't play the game entirely. So that's what Zexal did. And you set that up with a rank up magic, I believe it was Argent Chaos or Argent Force, one of those Force cards, and then you get yourself a Zexal with a ton of material under it, and your opponent is basically locked out of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Entirely. So yeah, that seems pretty fun. That seems fair. And the other deck that also made a comeback is World Chalice. World Chalice came back a bit to my surprise because Firewall was at 1, so I guess they did different variations on combos, because right now we don't have a lot of the Nightmare plays that we use so commonly today. May was an exciting time for Yu-Gi-Oh! It completely changed the game. We got ban list, and we also got 2 sets dropped. And with those 2 things in mind, that was very, very exciting. Because it was a change of pace in Yu-Gi-Oh! And rather than setting up boards where your opponent cannot break, you go into, well, a control mode where you play a game of control Yu-Gi-Oh versus your opponent. Now, what were the cards being banned? Masterpiece got banned, Grass got banned, Master Diamond got limited to 1, and Astrograph got banned. So big play bosses all got nerfed across the board so that these new sets can come in. And we have Dark Saviors and Flames of Destruction. Flames of Destruction known for Nightmare cards. As for Dark Saviors, we have these Sky Striker cards. So what were the top decks of the current format? We have, of course, Sky Strikers making its debut right away. You know, that chick with mechs. Who doesn't dig it? I dig it. It's really awesome, really cool stuff. But of course the cards were even better, where you can just get yourself a pot of greed through Engage, Draw, Search, pretty amazing. And Widow Anchors, just one of the cards that I complain about the most these days. Is like, how do I deal with a Widow Anchor? It's just gonna steal my card anyway. Something that you have to learn to play around. It's a standard for you to play around that card right now. So yeah, that's something that we have all gotten used to. But on top of that, Gokis basically gained a lot of ground. They already had Isolde from the previous set of Expo. But one thing to know about Goki is that there was no endgame for Goki previously until we got the Nightmare package, and that gave us Goki with U-Board. Now also in Flood, we got one of the cards that completely saved the Altergeist archetype, and that was Multi-Faker. SKTT1 Multi-Faker. Yes, carrying the entire team of Faker. Well, this one was the Altergeist answering the problem where they could not put enough monsters on the board. We got Altergeist now that can do that, and now Silky Dust gets a lot more advantage. With the banning of Masterpiece, Floodgate Dracos was still a thing because they did give them 3 copies of the Ignis Heat and also 1 copy of Dynamite Knight. So not too much change. It's still a very grindy deck. It's just that you're not sitting on a Masterpiece anymore. So a lot of those come like change my mind. Instead of saying change my mind, break my board. You get one of those situations. Those are kind of moved away from, yeah, basically we move away from that and we move to more of a control based game, except for Gokis, which would eventually lead back to come break my board. In June, we got Battle of Legends Relentless Revenge, which would give us Gumblar Dragon, and I think also gave us Gossip Shadow Bamboozling, which is part of the Rongo Bongo combo. Now, regardless, stuff from the previous month is still leaking over and kind of shaping our meta. Like Sky Strikers, Trickstar, now adopted Sky Strikers. So we have Trickstar, Sky Strikers. Yeah, it was a very fun deck because the Engage engine was just so good, being able to fetch you an additional card, and Sky Strikers themselves running Terraforming can fill up the grave with spells very quickly, so it was just an easy splash and let you put in some of the Sky Striker Link monsters in the extra deck, so you get extra fodder, extra damage. Everything was just free extras at that point, so free stuff was great. Nightmare fixed Spirals. Spirals had that suffering issue where they only had 1 resort, which made Master Plan pretty dead. But instead, what you get now is that you can shuffle in that resort so that your Master Plan gets a double search on a turn, which was pretty amazing on its own. And these Nightmare cards were just reshaping Yu-Gi-Oh! All around. Burning Abyss, still being Burning Abyss, somehow just never dying, taking a regional top, and I believe there was a YCS top with Burning Abyss again. Pendulum Magician also making a bit of a comeback without the Astrograph Magician, or sorry, Astrograph Sorcerer. You know, I guess shout outs to Triff Gaming for believing in the game plan, sticking with the game plan. And then also Gokis with Gumblar became one of the most monstrous deck of its time, where you can choose to either U-board your opponent or you can Gumblar your opponent for 4, or why not both, because eventually both was also an option, which was very scary. And of course, Pure Sky Striker was still a thing. And World Chalice is still making a stand because of the Nightmare package, giving it a lot more versatility and utility to kill your opponent. Because when you make the Nightmare package, you have a ton of damage to output too, aside from making a board where you can not be targeted, cannot be destroyed by battle, cannot be destroyed by card effect, and the ability to draw multiple cards. And most of these decks will roll over into July, so I'm not going to put it on the screen right now, but in July WCQ, most of these decks just basically just moved forward, and that was the representation of WCQ. There was a couple of Drew Dracos and a couple more Altergeist, but that was WCQ. And our winner, of course, was Goki, being the best deck. Gabe Vargas was the winner of 2018, and he was the one representing NA, and he was only 16 years old. So huge shout outs to you, and congratulations, of course, once again for that past achievement. And yeah, so yeah, he was evolving while he was playing Goki. That was what craziness was that? And then Saiho happened, Cybernetic Horizon, and one of the biggest things from Saiho, I believe, is the danger stuff, Boral Sword. Those are the two biggest things. Oh my god, I don't even know what I want to say about that particular set. But Sky Striker's got an upgrade because now they have Hayate, they can do direct damage, and they gain a lot of consistency because they can easily fetch out the engage now thanks to Hayate, and they can easily also win in time because of the direct attack. And then we also were introduced to Cyber Dragons, being with a rogue deck that was introduced that was also very, very strong, that can break boards and OTK. It is a surprisingly good going second deck that was introduced into the game, and made taking the extra monster zone a bit more, I guess you had to be a bit more cautious when it comes to taking that zone. And we also had Crusadia, which was our new One Punch Man deck, which I did get killed by a couple times because I took over 10,000 damage because they use a kaiju to kind of point into the zone in front of the extra monster zone, Equimax, gain all the attack, double the damage, and punch me in the face, which was, I guess, not very pleasant, but hey, it was a very fun deck, and I like seeing variety. And then this is the beginning of the end. We had Danger, Burning Abyss, or Danger Dark. I guess I'll just put Danger variants right here, but Dangers were slowly becoming a very big engine. The engine started out a little bit small, much like all the other decks, like most TCG exclusive. When like we got Cosmos, they started as a small little package, and eventually they expanded. And with the fundamental mechanic that was not once per turn, it was going to be abused in the future. But Danger BA definitely making a top cut. That's why it's being recognized right now in July. And in August, there's only two decks I really want to mention, since nothing really changed. Everything kind of just rolled forward, but there's two decks that kind of stood out. First one was due to a new product, thanks to the release of Shadows of Valhalla. With Shadows of Valhalla, we got the Link Invoker, which gave us Invoke Sky Striker. And I actually really enjoyed this particular deck. I played it for a little bit, as short-lived as it was, since it kind of got slashed by the ban list as collateral damage. You were able to push OTKs, and the same play that you would OTK you can use to stop your opponent from making plays, because it involved making multiple Mecha Buzz. That was actually very interesting, very fun for me to do. And it did require the tokens of Sky Strikers, and with 3 copies of Engage, 3 tokens, and a Widow Anchor, you had a pretty consistent engine to always get there. And then for your Alistair, that was pretty easy to search. You had 3 Terraformings, 3, I guess 2 Alistairs, and I guess 3 copies of Magical Meltdown, which gave you quick access there too. Another deck that I want to talk about is one that got a regional top that was really hyped because it was an underdog deck, and it was, I guess, Rogue Metaphys took a regional top 8 in August, so hats off to you. Playing the banishing game against your opponents, I think that was very smart, and you must have been a very skilled player to actually get there. So Konami actually did a ban list in September, except that it was a very minor hit, but it did change up the game with several other hits in the list. Well, starting off with some of the bans, we have Nightmare Goblin ban, MX Saber Invoker ban for the free summons, the free bodies. That was just too easy, too quick, too fast. And then Goblin's gone, Samsara Lotus for FTK. They hit Assault Core from ABC, which was not even relevant at the time. They hit it because it was part of an FTK thanks to Cannon Soldier, and I don't know why, because they should have just hit the Cannon Soldier. It would have made a lot more sense. But regardless, they hit the A Assault Core because it was part of the looping tool to get there. Well, clearly they're beating around the bush right now. And also the Sky Striker token and Scapegoat, they were all also hit on this list. And with the token hit, we can say that a lot of the hybrid decks are now all gone because it's just not as consistent when you can only search out that one token. If you already drew that one token, the engages just aren't very good. Making dead engages in the deck was kind of the goal of this particular ban list. So the surviving decks, of course, at the top cut level, we have Sky Strikers, which readapted their playstyle, and it's a lot more consistent. It was under a safety net to begin with, thanks to Hayate being able to add more consistency to the deck by dumping the card that you need in the graveyard by simply attacking directly. And Altergeist survived. They didn't lose anything. They were just like a bystander, and Goki heroes and Gokis again survived because we had summon sorceress, and Isolde combos are just still fully valid, so you can even go Gumblar combo plus U-board. Yeah, there's just no way they can win. Goki's still ultimately a very strong deck even today. Now in October, we got ourselves Soul Fusion. Soul Fusion was an amazing set which introduced Thunder Dragons into the top cut. So Thunder Dragons, here we go. With the walking, talking, I guess living one-sided mistake that can protect itself from being destroyed. It became another benchmark monster where people need to learn how to play around and leave outs against it, or else they were going to have a very, very rough time against this monster, as you can generate a ton of pluses simply by protecting this monster from being destroyed. So people would just stop hitting it, because hitting it is just very disadvantageous, and it would end up causing you to throw the game most of the time. Now, Gokis are still very strong, Altergeist still very good. However, one of the biggest things that got added to this was more danger cards. As mentioned before, the danger cards would eventually just roll the game into this FTK land. So starting off with Danger Dark World Dank FTK. So it's a firewall based FTK using Cannon Soldier based off of the old I guess the ASL Core Loop FTK. Now it's even easier to do because the danger monsters, they summon themselves. They are free summons, and even with 60 cards, the consistency was over 90% if you're not hand trapped. So yeah, that was pretty crazy, and we still had Sky Strikers in the loop. And more FTKs would start to appear, and many people would just be like, oh, I'm just gonna do this FTK, that FTK, 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 FTK. Now, one more thing I want to note is that there was also a Paleo deck that hit top 8 at YCS Niagara. I was judging that one, and I know this one for sure, it did happen. So yeah, Paleo coming back from extinction, I suppose. Now they are still very popular, and it is still a very good deck, especially with Trap Trick. Trap Trick is the one saving grace that really pushed the deck forward, because they were able to basically fetch out any trap that they needed, and they were able to put it in play. Very versatile. Definitely gave the deck a lot more flexibility and control over its own plays rather than gamble on the opening hand. So there was a lot of that going on, and I have a huge respect for anyone that's playing Paleo right now. In November, we got even more FTKs. It seems like the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At this point has become Gumblar them down to the ground, or hand rip them with a Trickstar combo, or you just don't let them search any card or let them play any card with a Thunder Dragon combo, or you do this new one, which is the Red Eyes FTK, where you loop them to death thanks to mandatory triggers from Jellin Duel and Red Eyes Flare Metal. So yeah, you just summon a negated Jellin Duel onto your opponent's side of the field, and then you just summon out a Red Eyes Flare Metal and you just loop them to death. So that was one of the new FTKs. And then we have Dino Thunder Dragon taking from Blair Hunter for Dino Thunders. Thank you. I'm loving this deck. This deck is super fun. I'm currently playing it right now. And also Trickstars took a win at a YCS as well. So yeah, Trickstars making a comeback, making a bit of a splash. But that's the most of the happenings of November. And then December was pretty interesting. In December, we got a new ban list, and somehow everyone lost their minds when Firewall got banned. I guess plot armor or not, I guess anyone that knows the show, I guess Firewall isn't exactly used as a main character monster too much. But regardless, first time that a main character monster died on a ban list. So this was after the YCS, and regardless, there were still some things that we need to talk about. Because even though Firewall got hit, ASL card came back, a lot of fixes on the ban list. Seems like it was a correctional ban list. It didn't address all the FTKs. It addressed one of the FTKs, which was the Danger Dark World Cannon Soldier FTK. However, more and more degenerate boards were coming back. Now we have a Slash Draw FTK, and yeah, that's pretty nasty. And that comes from using multiple draw cards in Saryuja, basically shuffling back in Slash Draws into the deck until you build up a giant board and you just hit them for 10,000. So it almost feels like the old school FTKs. All this kind of feels the same, but it almost feels like the Gem Knight FTK all over again. And to replace the U-board, because the U-board is very hard to achieve without the Firewall, and basically impossible to achieve at this point without Soul Charge, the way that you would do it now is you do Rongo Bongo combo, where you summon out a Rongo Miniade onto the board, and then you also use Bamboozling and then you put all the bamboozling material onto Ramagominade. Can't really pronounce the name still, but yeah, you would do that and you get a 5 material one where your opponent cannot even summon. So this is like an unbreakable board where you cannot even use kaijus to break it. So yeah, it's one of those. And finally, the most recent results of YCS Milan, our winner. By complete surprise, most exciting one of them all, one of the decks that were completely disregarded as the underdog deck, maybe like a fun deck from a very cheap set that is now very expensive, Prank Kids. And this is no prank, Prank Kids won YCS Milan, and for good reason too. Now that I actually think back about it, like he mentioned in his interview, he played against a lot of Sky Striker, and that is very good for him because Prank Kids are amazing against Sky Strikers because of the fact Widow Anchors are pretty damn useless against that particular deck. They spam too many monsters on the board, taking a monster would do no benefit, and for any of the monsters that were super useful, they can tribute it and get rid of it and resolve their effect. So overall, you can't stop it, and they have a back row killer in the name of Rip Roaring Roaster. Yeah, all that combined, it just makes a very rough game for Sky Strikers to play. But they also hyped up the popularity of Prank Kids, so now they are respected rather than just completely being at a table 500 deck. Yeah, that's, I don't know, what do you say to that, Farf? It's not table 500 anymore, I suppose. But maybe it is if you're a really bad player. Well, and I think that is all I got for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my rundown. If I missed anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Of course, in the form of the name of the player, the deck that they played, and the event that they played it at. And well, that way I don't have to hunt things down. So you guys don't have to ask me. You guys can just fill in the blank yourselves. And huge shout outs to Patreons and everyone. If you guys want to watch more stuff from MST.TV, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoyed this segment, and don't forget to check out Discord, where, well, I guess also subscribe if you want those upcoming gifts in the later time. I will also be posting it on Sam's channel, I believe, just so that it can go to everyone. It's just a little free gift. I have to put in a little work for it, but it's okay. But love you guys, enjoyed 2018. I still got a couple more videos coming. And well, that's all I got for this video, so don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'm proceeding down to the end phase.